Loudoun County School Superintendent Aaron Spence is set to testify up on Capitol Hill in a House hearing tomorrow entitled Breaking Trust: Attacks on Parents' Rights, Inappropriate Content, and Legal Abuses in America's Schools. Since President Trump took office, the district has been under investigation by the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, and now is the focus of the House Education Committee.
So much of it centers on high-profile incidents in Loudoun County school bathrooms. Who gets to use them, what happens inside them, and what parents are allowed to know. Before his trip to the Hill, Spence sat down with the News 4i team's Ted Oberg to explain how he sees this parents' rights battle.
So much of the controversy seems to be around gender identity, gender expression, and how that's treated in our schools. Why is that such an issue?
Well, quite frankly, I think people fear what they don't understand, and I think it's driven by a lot of fear and misunderstanding. I think it's really sad because we're talking about a very small number of our students who oftentimes are amongst the most harmed and marginalized students in our schools. And what we try to communicate regularly is that we follow federal law with regards to the treatment of our students.
And to you, what does that mean?
Specifically with regards, you asked about our transgender students, that transgender students have the opportunity to access the private spaces, bathrooms, and locker rooms of their consistently identified gender.
Broadly speaking, what is your idea of what parents are entitled to know?
Generally, everything about their child's education, but they're not always entitled to know anything about somebody else's child's education and what's going on in another child's life. And I think sometimes that's where the conflicts come in.
Last April, Loudoun County gained attention when the district refused to sign a Trump administration certification demanding the elimination of what it called illegal DEI practices or face a loss of funding. At the time, Spence said the district complied with existing law and the new demand was vague. The Department of Justice is now investigating the school district after a student at Freedom High School was accused in May of videotaping boys in the bathroom. The sheriff says that student, a juvenile, has now been charged criminally in connection to the alleged unlawful filming. When you heard about what happened at Freedom, how concerned were you?
Deeply concerned. Anytime we deal with a situation where we may have a predator, in our public spaces, I think anybody would be horrified by that. And of course I am, as a parent and as an educator.
It's the second DOJ investigation in Loudoun. Last year, DOJ concluded the district violated the civil rights of some male students by disciplining them after they raised issues with a trans boy in the boys' locker room at Stonebridge High School. There were plenty of people who saw what happened at Stonebridge and said kids were disciplined for speaking up about their discomfort.
Yeah. What I can say is that we would never discipline children for speaking up about being uncomfortable in a situation.
Are either of those instances examples of a failure of policy at Loudoun schools, and especially policy towards transgender students?
I don't believe that our policies are failing children. I think that our policies are set up to make sure that we follow the law. Bad people do bad things. If the standard in our schools is that nothing bad can ever happen or will ever happen, that's an unreasonable standard.
How do you break through to a parent who says, no, I don't agree with you. That's because you're too permissive. Those happen because your policies allow bad things to happen.
Our policies allow children to use the restrooms. If somebody decides to do something bad in a restroom, that's not something that's preventable based on our policies. And I think there are some folks for whom making Loudoun County the center of a different kind of story is helpful for them. It helps keep them in the news. It helps keep maybe a political agenda in the news. But it's not who we are in reality.
The federal government has threatened to cut millions in education funding to Loudoun County over its gender and diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. But so far, Spence says the county hasn't lost a dollar. But is this a game of chicken?
It's not about playing chicken. It's not about wanting to be the public face of these issues. It's about just wanting to lead a school system, do what's right for our kids and our families, and remember that every single day so many incredible things are happening in our schools, and that's the real story.
Spence said he's not exactly looking forward to testifying tomorrow. He expects some of it to be quite hostile, but he didn't have a choice about whether he could show up. He said he's not nervous. He feels local support. His contract was recently renewed through 2029. We did ask him about any changes that have happened within the district due to these high-profile incidents. He said none specifically, but will be watching all of these investigations closely. He's not going to be alone tomorrow. 2 other superintendents from across the country have hot seats as well.